Back to another edition of NASCAR DFS Preview with the Sports Chief, and I'm AustYn, and we're coming to you from Kansas Speedway for the Superstart Batteries 400. Now, Kansas Speedway is a 1.5-mile tri-oval. It's pretty similar to the Kentucky Chicagoland style tracks. The banking is like 20 degrees and lower in the turns, so to speak. So, if you watched our week last week, we actually did really well. We had Austin Dillon in our lineup. We had Tyler Reddick. We had all 6 of our drivers actually finished in the top 12, which is pretty awesome. I'm very excited about. I kind of changed up my strategy a little bit. Really looked at those average finishes. And I also, dictated where they're starting at. Also, past performance at the past tracks. So there's a few good notes to take for this race. Like I mentioned last week, we also look at the Goodyear tire notes on J-Ski. And what we have to go off of course, is history. If you watch my past videos, I always talk about history is all we have. We don't have practice speeds to go off of or qualifying. I mean, not that qualifying is that important, but they do a random draw, and that kind of determines where you're starting. So starting position, of course, is very key. Pit stalls I'll be looking at a little bit this week. Didn't really mention it a whole lot in the last video. There's going to be 267 laps in this event. So being that there's less laps in this one, it makes laps led it's not as important. Let me just put it that way, as it would have been at Texas. So, starting position may be a little more important in terms of cars passed, because you get a point per pass. They also have 8 sets of tires, which makes sense. They had 9 last week, so one more fuel run would have, equaled out to the 330 odd laps that they ran last week. So. Got a little different strategy, but we're going to see what DraftKings has to offer for us, and let's check it out here. So as you can tell, Kevin Harvick is our most expensive driver at 11.5. We have 4 drivers in 10K, so we don't have a 10,400. We don't have that 10.4, but anyway. Chase Elliott starting in 11th at 11,000. Martin Truex Jr. starting in 5th at 10.6. And Denny Hamlin starting in 10th at 10.2. Now, Kevin Harvick got really lucky. He drew number 1, so he's starting on the pole. Harvick is really good at Kansas. In fact, he's got 3 wins here. And one note that I thought was interesting, there are 10 active drivers in the field that have actually won a cup race at Kansas. So this track is pretty diverse in the fact that a lot of drivers in the field could win on Sunday, more so than any others. There's not really one driver that's totally dominant. A lot of the guys are pretty similar in their average finishes. Kevin Harvick does have an average finish of 9.8. He's one of the better ones. And he looked for him to be very chalky this week. I think a lot of people are going to go after him. So anyway, kind of the way I made my strategy last week, Erik Jones was in a great starting spot for me. And he's in a pretty good one this week. He's in 21st. He was in 23rd. I really like those 2 more spots. He finished 6th for us, led a few laps. But Erik Jones is not my driver this week. Jimmy Johnson starting in 20th. Jimmy has won 3 races here as well. He's got 19 top 10s and 27 starts. Those 8 starts that he doesn't have top 10s, unfortunately, a lot of them are recent. He hasn't led a lap here since 2015, so it's going to be hard for me to go with him. One note that I will say is that the tire model for this track. Now, the left sides are going to be the same as last fall at Kansas, according to Goodyear. And the right sides are going to be the same as Texas, Kentucky, and Las Vegas. So you want to look at those 3 tracks, see who performed pretty well at those, and that can kind of give you a good inkling of who to pick. Last week in the video I mentioned that Matt DiBenedetto had finished third, I think in both races, maybe Kentucky and Vegas. But he had finished well, either way. So he performed well. He was an interesting pick, and he was running great until later in the race. He just kind of fell back, ended up 17th. So we're glad we didn't go with him. But it's important to see that. And one thing about the left sides as well, they're going to be the same tire as last year. But one thing to note, it's the same tire they ran at Charlotte this year. So left sides are going to be the same at Charlotte. Right sides are going to be the same as Texas, Kentucky, and Vegas. Look for those guys that are really good at mile and a halves. Not really sure. I know the track is more abrasive now than it was before, so that's one thing to keep in mind. They paved it in 2012, and over time it's just gotten rougher and rougher. Martin Truex Jr. has pretty much dominated the new pave, and Kyle Busch has done pretty well. So the tracks are changing. Just keep that in mind. And to start off with my first driver of this week, I love that 23rd starting spot, and Tyler Reddick is my guy. So Christopher Bell actually is pretty cheap. He's at 8-1. I say cheap, but anyway, he's 8,100 at 22nd starting spot. So he drew a higher starting spot, and he's not up in the 11s anymore. But Tyler Reddick starting in 23rd. As you all know, he finished second last week. Could have won the race, and pit strategy put him out there on 0 tires, while everybody else took 4, other than Dillon, who took 2, and he stayed. He held them off. So it's pretty awesome to see that. And Reddick, one great stat that I had about him was that 12 of the 14 starts where he didn't, when he didn't wreck, he was in the top 20. So if he keeps all 4 tires on the track, he's probably going to do well. And he finished 9th here last year in his Cup start. His average finish in the Xfinity Series is 3rd, and he's got 3.0 average finish. And he's got 3 top 5s and 3 starts. He's very good at this track, and I like Tyler Reddick to at least get me in top 15. That's what I'm looking for. An 8.3, that's not too much to ask for. I really like Tyler Reddick and where he's at right now. So I'm going with him at 8,300. Now, I feel like a lot of people are going to see Kevin Harvick in that first spot, and rightfully so. They probably should just go ahead and click it. I'm not going to go Kevin Harvick. There was another driver that I feel warranted a look, and to me will have a higher output in points, and I do think Harvick will be picked more than him, and that is Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott is starting in 11th spot. We went with Chase last week, and one of the big things was he's starting in 8th. His average finish, aside from the wreck, he was 8th. At Kansas, he has a win here, and he has an average finish of 11.5, right there where he's starting, and I really like that spot for Chase. And Chase actually won one of the Charlotte races. Like I said, that left side tire is the same. Really like Chase Elliott in this spot at 11,000. More so than Kevin Harvick, because I think that Harvick's got to win the race, and he is not my pick to win the race. So I'm not going to necessarily say Chase is my pick to win the race, because, hey, I had Dillon in my lineup last week, but would have never picked him to win. But I like Chase. I like Chase's chances this week. So now we have an average salary of $7,600 in our account here. And I'm going to cut it off at Erik Jones there. So, as I stated, I'm not going Erik Jones this week. He's just a little too pricey. If he was around 8-1, around there with Tyler Reddick, I would have thought about going that route. And one driver that I'm considering is Clint Bowyer. So Clint Bowyer starting in 19th spot. He will not have the crowd, so to speak. He may have it at home watching on TV, but he won't have the fan base at the track as he would in normal years. He is a Kansas native. He's never won here, but his average finish is 15.7. So if his average finish is 16th, he's starting in 19th. I really like that spot, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm going with him. He actually has finished inside the top 10 in his last 2 starts here. Love those Stewart-Haas engines. I don't feel confident enough in Cole Custer to pick him in that 24th spot. I think Bowyer is just a solid option. Even though Custer won at Kentucky on the same tire, I still love Bowyer in that spot. Because Bowyer did okay for us last week as well. Did he get? I'm thinking he got 10th. 11th, sorry. So he got 11th. And he's finishing inside the top 15. This is definitely a cash game strategy for those of you out there. So more so cash. I'll have it in some tournaments, but it's pretty conservative. And I think I'm going more conservative this year. Like after last week, I'm definitely going more conservative. It was just a great output for us. So going with Clint Bowyer there in 19th spot. Now, another driver that intrigued me was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So as you can see, Dylan's there at 7-2, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 7. Dylan is starting too high for me. He's too close to the front. I think he can finish around where he's at right there, and he may get a top 10. He's just a little high. I think if he was 18th or 19th where Bowyer is, I'd have pulled the trigger in a heartbeat over Bowyer. But I just don't like him as much there in the 16th spot. Ricky Stenhouse in 25th. One thing to note about Ricky. Now, Ricky would be my dark horse pick. I'm not going to pick him in my main lineup. But if you're out there listening, Ricky Stenhouse did finish very well at Vegas. He did finish very well at one of the Charlotte races. I believe it was the second one, not the Coke 600. He finished top 10. I think he might have finished top 5. I know he finished like 3rd or 4th at Vegas, and he finished 3rd or 4th at Charlotte. So that's something to keep an eye on. He runs pretty well on that tire. So in 25th spot, I think he's got to get a top 15. I don't feel confident enough in the fact that he will. I think he definitely can. I just don't. I can't pull the trigger on that. Ricky's too inconsistent, and we're trying to keep some consistency here. So I'm not going Ricky. And I actually scroll down a little bit here farther. I'll cut it off at LaJoy, so that leaves Ricky up the top as well. Chris Buescher, man, he keeps drawing those really high, or he's like starting 13th. He's really close to the front, so we can't go with Chris Buescher. Matt Kenseth starting really high there as well. So John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek is starting in 30th spot. And I'm going to go ahead and click him because I really like Nemechek. Nemechek has a great track record at Kansas. He actually has an Xfinity win. His average finish is 4.5 there. And one thing to note, his average finish on those left side tire model. So I'm talking Charlotte. Well, I guess Charlotte's really the only one I'm looking at there. I would look at last year, but he didn't run there. So one of the things to note for him is that I'm just thinking he may have ran. I didn't look at it. I didn't really pay attention to it. Last year's stats, or I'm not going to look at him for this. So the left sides are the same as Charlotte this year. His average finish was 15th on the left side. Right side was 23rd, barring a wreck. So, which I use that as an outlier. I do count wrecks, but typically I just try to minimize them in terms of, their average finish sucks. I kind of want to see how they do when they run a full race. But anyway, if John Hunter Nemechek can get me a top 20, that's a great value for him at 6,800. And considering around all those other guys, he's better than Ricky Stenhouse to me. The track record just for Nemechek is just great. He's won here, and he's actually pretty good in the Truck Series as well. Going John Hunter Nemechek, I really like him to get a top 15, actually. And one spot that was really tough for me to decide, these spots were insanely difficult, right? So you're at 8,200. Erik Jones is a really popular option. You would have 7,400 to spend, and I would go Stenhouse. You could go Custer, Dillon, or Stenhouse. I don't think you can even consider Kenseth or Newman. So you could go that route if you really like Erik Jones. If you like Kevin Harvick, you don't have quite enough money, but you could X out Nemechek, go with like Corey LaJoie, and then you would have Preece. So that's a really good tournament lineup right there. LaJoie, if he gets a top 20, that's great. If Preece gets a top 20, that's great. But I can't pick those guys because even though LaJoie is actually pretty solid at Kentucky and Vegas, he got 16th and 16th at those two tracks, and those were ones we're considering. In Texas, he got a top 20, didn't he? Pretty sure. Yeah, he got 16th. I mean, 16th is a pretty popular spot for him. He got 28th at Kentucky. I keep thinking, I get Texas and Kentucky mixed up. So he's someone to consider. I just can't pull the trigger on it. I really like the engine program for these guys a little better for John Hunter Nemechek. So I'm going with Nemechek, and it's just really tricky here. But I'm going with Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon is starting in 36th spot. His average finish here is 24th. Xfinity Series, he's 7.5. He wrecked last week, but he finished 16th at Kentucky. He had a really good finish at Vegas. I want to say it was a top 20 as well. And he did okay at the Charlotte tracks, I'm pretty sure. So he's just a decent option here. And that 36th spot, he could finish in the top 25 fairly easily. And that's what I'm going with. I'm just going for cars past there. So I'm going Ty Dillon. And this is my dilemma. So I was down to two drivers once I saw this here. Ryan Blaney starting in 4th or Kyle Busch starting in 8th. Brad Keselowski's pretty good here. Don't get me wrong. Joe Logano's starting in a little too good a spot for me, especially with the way he's running. I don't see him being a dominator. Kyle Busch finished 4th in a car last week that went through the grass. Now, I do think Kyle Busch has a little momentum going on his side. Ryan Blaney flat out dominated at Texas. His mile-and-a-half record this year is crazy good. He's always in the top 10. He's second in the points overall behind Kevin Harvick. Kyle Busch is actually 10th in points. Can you believe that? He hasn't won a race yet either. So that's pretty crazy to think of as well. Kyle does have the best starting spot among the two. He's starting in 8th. Ryan Blaney starting in 4th. Ryan Blaney has the second pit stall again this week, and I think that helped him a decent amount last week. Austin Dillon's in that first stall, and I don't think that Dillon will be able to use it to his advantage as much as Blaney will be able to use that second spot. So, without further ado, I'm going with Ryan Blaney. Reason being is Ryan, I can't go off the average finish deal because his average finish is actually 15.7, but he came close to winning here in the Wood Brothers 21 car a couple years back. He's 13-2 to win, just like Kyle. I could see him easily leading 100 laps in this race, and he's just on fire right now. Past performances show me that Ryan's the better pick there among Kyle. Because if you look here, if you click Blaney, Blaney had 86 fastest laps. Almost every week he's leading something. Kyle's not really doing that. Kyle led some last week, but he has fastest laps for sure, but he doesn't do it consistently enough to where I could go with him. Maybe I'll wait until he catches fire, but I'm going with Ryan Blaney. He also, Xfinity is 5.7 average finish, so he's pretty good here in Xfinity Series. So let's just clean it up here. Chase Elliott at 11,000. Ultimately, he would be my pick to win the race. Being that I paid him, or the most expensive, he's the most expensive among my drivers there. Ryan Blaney is probably my realistic pick, but I do think Chase will contend. Chase is very good at Kansas. We're going with Tyler Reddick as our third option. Clint Bowyer is our fourth. at 7.5, Tyler Reddick at 8.3, Ryan Blaney 9.9, John Hunter Nemechek at 6.8, and Ty Dillon at 6.5. So, well, sorry about that. That's our lineup there. You clear it out. If you want to do a tournament lineup, I think you have to go Harvick and then cover yourself with Erik Jones there, 21st. Reason why I picked Blaney in 4th is because I had to chase his cushion a little bit. I had no need to pick Kyle just for past cars. If you're sitting here like that, I would also go Tyler Reddick and get you some. I'd probably go Cole Custer. He's a decent option there at 7.3. And then maybe even Ryan Preece at 5.8. That gives you 8.1. And or go Clint Bowyer. Yeah, and see, that's a solid lineup for sure. For sure. That's a pretty solid one. But I like what we got. That's only if you think Kevin Harvick will win the race. I like my odds having Chase or Ryan Blaney there. So, there you have it, folks. This one seems like it's a little tougher. I really hope that John Hunter Nemechek and Ty Dillon can give us some positive EV there. Ty's starting in a really good spot, as well as Nemechek. And they can get in the top 10. Ty, maybe not so much, but definitely Nemechek for sure. I think he's got a little better engine program for sure. If you like what you see here, like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click that bell notification to let you know whenever my videos get posted. Go check us out on Twitter. Follow us at The Sports Chief. We also have our website, www.thesportschief.com. We're also on Instagram as well. So, best of luck to you for the Superstart Batteries 400. And we've got some races here. I mean, Thursday's a really odd day. But we also have the Xfinity and Truck Series the remainder of the week. So that'll be pretty cool. Anyway, best of luck to you, and hope to see you next week.